I think we should tread cautiously when you're talking about his tongue and then talking about how he swallows things.
I did not expect this to go this way.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 138 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast. Discusses the culture through various segments. My name, of course, is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty well. I'm exhausted from work today, but
yeah, me too.
Yeah, not doing too bad. What, you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm glad that I'm home and dry, and because this morning was kind of crazy. Like you said, you had to work this morning. My schedule changed. We're recording this on Saturday. My schedule just recently changed where I work Tuesday through Saturday, which for most of you, it probably sounds like it sucks, but at my particular job, it's actually awesome because Saturdays are super, super chill. So basically, I just have to work hard 4 days out of the 5 days that I have to go to work. And Saturdays are super chill. And I basically just sat around and worked on the podcast and did other stuff. I mean, I worked really hard. If anyone's listening,
I hope your boss
matters.
doesn't listen.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was one bad thing is I do have to go outside a couple of times throughout my shift, and it was pouring. It was ridiculous. Yeah. I guess there was like flash flood warnings and shit, as my phone would tell me at like 2:00 in the morning when it would just go off randomly.
We had a couple people call in today because they said they couldn't get out. They lived at the bottom of a hill and with all the flash floods, which I call bullshit.
Yeah.
But
I guess you couldn't get out of Sugar Mill if you lived in those apartments. You couldn't even get out of it because the little creek or whatever that's near there overflooded.
Oh, wow.
Not that that matters to anybody that is listening outside of Evansville, but yeah, it was pretty crazy. I guess we were just like on the very southern part of it too, because Kentucky stayed completely dry as far as I understand.
Yeah, and it's like really nice out now. So
yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was supposed to rain the next few days, but maybe we're through it.
Yeah, no, tomorrow is supposed to start up again, which is awesome because I wanted to mow the lawn.
Yeah, no shit. My wife was going to mow the lawn because I'm working this weekend and she's off. And our house is starting to look like the white trash house on the block. So
yeah,
it's really bugging me, and I'm really wishing that would get mowed, but it doesn't sound like it will. So
all right, so we start off each episode by kind of just checking in with each other. We call it what we're into. So what are you into this week?
So last Saturday evening, my wife and I were invited to her stepbrother's house to play board games with him and his fiance, and they were very gracious hosts, and they made us dinner and did all sorts of stuff that I would be awful at if I were to invite people over to my house because we can't cook worth shit. But after dinner,
I don't know. You made those pretty sweet Hawaiian ham sandwiches. I ate those up, man.
Yeah, that was easy. That was easy to do. But they made like pork chops and stuff and ribs, and it was really good.
Big boy food.
Yeah, grown up food. It felt very adult, and I felt very out of place. But after dinner was over, we got to the not adult stuff, which was playing board games, which was a lot of fun. And I was just going to talk about a few of the games we played because I know that board games are a big part of nerddom that we don't necessarily get into a whole lot on our podcast. So the first game we played was called Flux. And apparently Flux has a lot of different iterations. The version we played was Batman the Animated Series Flux.
Okay.
And I don't know that the game changes from deck to deck. It's just kind of the theme of the deck. So obviously Batman the Animated Series was right up my alley. It's a cool game. It's a card game that you play with. We played with 4 people, of course, and you start out and there's a rule that you have to basically achieve with the cards you get to win. If there's any creepers on the table, which in this case were Batman villains, you can't win. And there's a lot of different rules that go into it. But basically what you're trying to do is get the cards that the rule says is the victory. So like one of the cards was like the Batcave wins. And you would have to have like the Bat Cuffs and the Batmobile or some kind of different iteration of that. And so it was pretty fun. I think that my stepbrother-in-law's fiance ended up winning that. The next game we played was called Fuse, which was a lot of fun as well. It's a cooperative game. It's a dice game where everybody has cards and it has different squares on each card, and you take turns rolling the dice, and basically everybody has to take one of the dice for their cards, and it's basically like you're defusing a bomb by getting the cards complete with the dice that you have rolled. So like your card might say you need a blue, a 6, and a yellow or a red. And so the dice are, of course, different colors, and then they're normal dice with like numbers on them. So each card has a varying difficulty, and you're trying to get through all the cards before the 10-minute timer goes off. So it's pretty cool. Apparently, there's like an app or a website where it plays like the Mission Impossible music.
Oh, really?
And counts down for you. So that was a lot of fun. I do like cooperative games quite a bit, which brings me to the bigger one we played that I think is going to more hit with the podcast, and that's called Marvel Legendary.
Okay.
And when he was setting this game up, I started to kind of not necessarily roll my eyes, but I have buddies that are really into board games, and most of the time they're so convoluted, it's not any fun to play.
Yeah.
And as he was pulling out all the cards and all the different decks and stuff, I was like, oh, great, here we go. I'm never going to get this. But it was actually pretty easy to play, and it was a lot of fun. And what it is a deck building game. And of course, there's a board. You basically pick a villain, and there's cards that are associated with the villain. In our case, we played against Loki, and you then pick heroes for your hero deck. So we chose X-Men characters. We played with Rogue, Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, and Gambit. And so you basically are going through each turn. People are buying characters and building their deck up so that you can attack Loki and attack the other villains that kind of come out through gameplay. And we got down to the wire. These things flip over throughout the game called schemes. And if you have 8 schemes show up in the version of the game we played, you lose. And we were at 7 schemes. And right at the end of it, and we had gotten Loki down to his 1 life. And we ended up winning, which was a lot of fun. And apparently, they didn't really share this with us until we were like halfway into the game, that you also total up points if you win. And you can have individual winners. So it's kind of cooperative, but it also in a way is versus. And I think I got like 2nd or 3rd place with that. But it was a lot of fun. I'm planning on buying it. It was simple enough, and it was really cool seeing my wife play a game like that, because it's a pretty nerdy game. It's like the type of game that I imagine they would play like if you walk into Comic Quest.
Yeah.
And having her catch on and play was a lot of fun. And there's different iterations. Apparently they make a villain version where you're playing against each other and you're trying to sabotage each other. So that sounded like a lot of fun, but it's definitely something I want to get a little bit more into because it was a blast.
Yeah, man, those sound like a lot of fun. I do like board games quite a lot. It's not something that I necessarily talk about a whole lot. It's not something, given that I have so many other hobbies, it's not something that I do a ton, but I do really enjoy them. I had talked about a while back Betrayal on the House of the Hill, which I really like. My buddy Mike, formerly of The Obsessive Viewer, is the one that kind of got me into that. Unfortunately, it's not a game that like just me and my wife could play, because I think you need at least 3 maybe even 4 people to play it. So it's not a game that we play very often just because we can't physically play it. But it's definitely something that I think you would enjoy and you should definitely check out.
Awesome, man. What are you into?
Well, we went to go see a movie last week, I think it was, and it was a movie I didn't know a ton about. It's called Free Fire, which is an A24 film, which is kind of an indie production company. It's more like an artsy type of production company, so you kind of expect a quality of movie when you know it's an A24 movie, because they generally make pretty good movies. They made, I think, The Witch, Moonlight. I mean, they do a lot of like the Oscar, I don't want to say Oscar bait movies, but those more artsy kind of indie movies. It was directed by Ben Wheatley, which didn't know anything about him. Apparently he's best known for High Rise, which is a Tom Hiddleston movie. Don't know anything about it. Have never seen it before. But apparently that's his other big movie other than this one. It has a really good cast. Stars Brie Larson, Armie Hammer, among a lot of others. It's set in the 70s. It's about an arms deal that goes bad and basically just turns into like this old fashioned shootout. Like I said, I didn't know a ton about this movie going into it. The trailer made it look really, really fun. It was an A24 movie, like I said, so you kind of expect that it's going to be pretty good if they were producing it. It was only an hour and a half, so at the very least, even if it was garbage, you're not investing a ton of time. And it honestly, like afterwards, I feel weird talking about this movie because everything about it was above average. But I was ultimately disappointed after we left because, like, the set design was really cool. I like the fact that they really made it feel like you were in the 70s. There was good acting. Like, this is probably Armie Hammer's best performance since the Social Network, which is not saying a whole lot, but I thought he was actually really good in it. The movie was well paced. Like I said, it was only an hour and a half, but they kind of get right down to it, and they don't really waste a whole lot of time doing anything. Like, nothing like drags out at all. It's really well paced. The direction was a little chaotic at times. I think that it was tough to really understand where everybody was in relation to one another, but I think that kind of helps because, and I've talked about this before, I kind of like movies that kind of, the movie going experience kind of mirror what the characters are going through in the movie. So it was hard for me to follow where everybody else was in the movie, but that was kind of the point because they didn't really know where they were in relation to the other characters. So I liked that. There was enough character work. Like, I mean, you felt for these characters somewhat. There wasn't a ton because, like I said, it was only an hour and a half, but I think there was enough for you to actually care about these characters. There's a few twists and turns that I wouldn't necessarily say that I didn't see coming, but it was kind of nice. So the story was all right, but ultimately I felt disappointed just because the trailer made it seem like it was a little bit more fun. Like, I expected it to be, these are hardened criminals and they're kind of used to this situation. And I thought the banter was going to be a little bit more witty.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was going to be more fun. And it wasn't necessarily not that. It just wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. Like, it had its moments where the banter was pretty fun, but it just wasn't exactly what I expected it to be. So ultimately I was disappointed, which kind of seems weird considering I didn't have like super high expectations because I didn't even know this movie existed like a month ago. So it's kind of weird to say that I was disappointed in a movie I barely had any expectations for, but it's just, the trailer looked really cool and I kind of expected a little bit more from A24 films.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I didn't know this movie existed. I actually didn't even see a trailer for it before we went to see it. I just looked it up on IMDb, saw what it was about, and saw the cast. And the cast pretty much sold me on it. Like, I love Charlton Copley, and I wish he got more notable work. But I don't know. After shit kind of hits the fan, it's pretty much everybody crawling around because they're trying to avoid being shot or because they have been shot. And that got old for me really quick. I don't know. I just, from what I read and the cast and like the feel of the poster, I was expecting something else, and that maybe that's not fair since I didn't watch a trailer, but it wasn't a bad movie, and the cast definitely was great, and all of the stuff you said I agree with. It was just, I don't want to say boring, but
it did have its moments.
Yeah, it's, you can only watch people crawling around bleeding out for so long before you kind of need it to move on to something else, and so it wasn't necessarily what I expected, but not an awful movie by any means. Yeah,
that's kind of where I was going with it. Is like, I felt weird talking about it because it was going to sound like it was a bad movie. Yeah. It wasn't at all. It was well put together. I'll probably never watch it again, but it just wasn't what I expected it to be. And ultimately I was disappointed.
Yeah, I wonder, Brie Larson's made some strange choices since she won her Oscar. Like, I know she was already signed up for Skull Kong Island, and like she flew out to film that, I think the day after the Oscars, but I'm imagining that this movie was probably put together after that, right?
Oh, I'm sure it was. I mean, it's a small indie movie. Those usually don't take too terribly long to do.
And it's not necessarily like, I guess you could call it a bottle movie, like you call it a bottle episode, because it mostly takes place in the same spot, but you start off in a different spot. But I can't imagine it took too long to film since you're doing everything in a warehouse. So
yeah, but I mean, it's not. Well, maybe with this indie movie, it probably would be, but just because they're in a warehouse doesn't mean it's necessarily the same warehouse for sure the whole time. But with this movie, probably it was just a big warehouse, and they just happened to film it in probably a few weeks. I mean, usually these types of movies, maybe a little bit longer because it was set in the 70s, so there's a little bit more production value there. But it was probably done pretty quickly.
Yeah.
All right, so our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week, and we like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
I read Deadpool versus Punisher issues 1 and 2.
Okay.
which wasn't on my radar at all until I was just going through the new comic list and saw that it was being put out. So I have, for the most part, enjoyed the Deadpool versus comics. I've read most of them. I don't think I ever finished Deadpool versus Thanos, but for the most part, I have enjoyed these. And this one definitely piqued my interest because I really want to read Punisher comics, and his main title is not great. And I say that having only read the first issue, but the first issue was enough to turn me off to it. So just having Punisher show up in another comic was kind of a selling point for me. Both of these characters go too far with their heroism sometimes, but of course they're on like complete opposite sides of the personality spectrum. So I thought it could maybe be pretty fun. And it is kind of a fun comic. So the gist of this comic is that the Deadpool has this banker. He's called like Banksy or the banker. He's referred to those kind of two terms throughout the issues, that deals with his money. And he's also turns out to be like a big money launderer for villains. Like Kingpin shows up in one of the issues, worried about his money after some stuff happens. And so basically Punisher's going after this guy who Deadpool's friends with. He's friends with his family, and some stuff happens that I won't spoil, but it basically kind of turns the two against each other. And that doesn't last very long. In the second issue, they're kind of working together a little bit. And that's what I've noticed. And that's what's interesting about these Deadpool versus comics, that is in almost every single one of them, Deadpool and the person he's supposed to be versus end up working together in some way instead of actually fighting. And the two are definitely not friends in the issue too. They're not getting along, but they are working on the same assignment, I guess you could say, or the same, towards the same goal. So I find that interesting. The same thing happened in Deadpool versus Gambit and a couple other of these miniseries. So I am digging it a lot, and I love these little stories that they do. But in the end, I just really would like to see a better ongoing Punisher, because I know that this will probably end after 5 or 6 issues, and
probably
it'd be left without a Punisher comic again. So last year I had Daredevil Punisher. This year I have Deadpool Punisher. I don't know what happens next. I'm sure they'll put out something closer to his Netflix show to kind of ride that wave a little bit. But so far we just have that standalone comic that's ongoing that isn't so great.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how they were going to do this book, like you said, because Deadpool versus something, like, even though they're both anti-heroes, they both are heroes. So
yeah,
it's kind of funny in a way. Like, I don't know how they're going to balance that, because obviously they're not going to make one person win and the other one lose, because then you're cutting down one of the fan bases. Also, I was just kind of curious how they were going to do it, because both of them are very violent. And so I thought that the comic might get out of hand really, really quickly with the two of them. But I think they've been able to kind of rein that in a little bit. I've only read the first issue. It starts a little bit slower than I thought it was going to, given the two characters. But I enjoyed it enough to pick up the second issue. I just haven't read it yet.
Yeah, a lot of the banter is really funny, and
sure,
it's the stuff that you expect. And Punisher does actually have a couple moments that are kind of funny, being played off of Deadpool too. So it's a comic that I'd recommend, especially since it's not a big investment. It'll only be a few issues. So,
all right, cool.
What'd you read?
So I read Ben Reily, Scarlet Spider #1. I know that the Clone Saga and Spider-Man kind of get shit on among comic book nerds, but I think I've said this before. It might have been like one of our first episodes. I think we did a top 5 Spider-Man villains or something for our main topic. It was one of our really, really early episodes, so please do not go back and listen to it, because it was probably super, super awkward. But I believe, if I remember correctly, that I mentioned that either the Jackal was maybe an honorable mention, or maybe he actually made that list, because I really enjoyed the Clone Saga. It was really when I started. I was always a big fan of Spider-Man, but it was really when I started getting into comic books and into the character. And one of the only issues in comic books that kind of made me tear up was when you finally figure out for sure, because Peter Parker for a while wasn't Spider-Man. It was Ben Reilly, and Peter Parker was convinced that he was actually a clone and Ben Reilly was the real Spider-Man. And one thing that's always drawn me to Spider-Man and Marvel in general is that they're vulnerable superheroes. And I really enjoyed that little run of Spider-Man. And the issue that you find out that Ben Reilly was actually the clone and Peter Parker was Spider-Man the whole time is one of those issues that kind of tugged at my heartstrings a little bit. I got a little bit of emotional. So I've always really liked the character, and I've always kind of defended the Clone Saga just because of that. And I've defended the Jackal, even though, yeah, ultimately he is a pretty lame villain. But I've kind of fallen away from the character, not necessarily just because I didn't like it or anything. It's just not a character that the book has been very good, or for various other reasons. But I was pretty excited to get into this. Unfortunately, this first issue was just a fucking shit show, man.
Really?
Like, it was bad. It took me 2 sittings to read it.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I started reading it and I got about 4 or 5 pages into it. Not that a comic book is really that big of a time investment.
Yeah.
I was just like, this kind of sucks. And I was like, I'll read it here in a little bit. And so I sat it down and then I just picked it up the next day. Like, I never do that. That's how much of a chore it was to get through a 23-page comic book. There was way too much going on. They don't really explain a whole lot. They tease way too much and they don't give me a whole lot in return. I won't get the second issue. Like, I was really, really disappointed because I was super, super excited about it. Like I said, I am a fan of the character. Ultimately, like I said, I haven't read it in a while, but just really, really disappointing. Super, super confusing. I mean, the artwork, I guess, is pretty cool, but it's nothing to write home about by any means. But I guess it's one redeeming quality. I liked that it was set in Vegas, like Elektra. The new Elektra comic book is also set in Vegas, so that might be something new that Marvel's doing. So I thought that was pretty cool. But other than that and the artwork, which again wasn't like spectacular or anything, this was a really shitty comic book.
Yeah, this didn't even blip on my radar. Like, I saw that it was coming out, and I figured it was probably spun out of stuff that happened in the Clones Conspiracy, but I'm so far behind on Spider-Man that I'm not even close to the Clones Conspiracy, so I don't necessarily know what happens in that run. But, yeah, it's just, I'm not really familiar with the Clone Saga. I know it caused a big divide among fans, and most people hated it, besides you.
I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Just most people. But yeah, it wasn't even something I was tempted to pick up. I think that character's probably gained some popularity over the years. I've seen a lot of cosplay as the Scarlet Spider at the conventions we've been to, or like post or pictures of cosplay online. It might be because his costume's a little bit easier to pull off.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Than the Amazing Spider-Man. But I mean, there is a love for the character out there. So
for sure, it was super, super disappointing.
Yeah. Cool. So you ready for nerd news?
Of course.
So every week we talk about the big nerd headlines that have come up since the last time we recorded. This week was actually kind of big. I had to cut some stuff down so we didn't go too long with nerd news. So I'll just get right into it. The big trailer that was released this week that I have a feeling Pat didn't watch was the Kingsman Golden Circle trailer.
I did not watch that.
So it's kind of like the Star Wars teaser in a way.
Okay.
It shows you some big moments, but obviously doesn't give too much away about the plot. It's just some action pieces and a couple of funny lines. The one big thing that they show, and I mean, it's in the trailer, so I guess, and it's been known for a little bit, but Colin Firth is in the trailer.
Okay.
Wearing an eye patch. And that's something I don't know that I'm going to be able to get past. Like, I love The Kingsman. It was my number 1 or number 2 movie of the year it came out. And Colin Firth in that movie was amazing, but I don't know about him still being alive, man. Maybe they'll explain it scientifically or some gadget or something, but his death carried a lot of weight in that first movie, and to just bring him back in the sequel.
I don't know, man. I mean, yes, it does bother me a little bit, but I think ultimately what I loved about Kingsman was it kind of didn't take itself super seriously, and it's kind of not necessarily a parody, but it's kind of like it's spoofing James Bond movies, and those movies are pretty ridiculous too. So I'm okay with it in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very good point. Like, it's not a serious spy movie. It's definitely spoofing the genre, but I don't know if maybe that was their plan all along, but I mean, Colin Firth was definitely the standout in that movie for me. I mean, Taron Egerton was great too, but one thing you also see in the trailer is your first snippet of Channing Tatum. And,
That's what I heard.
And The Statesman, which I guess it comes over to the U.S. and he's in it. Jeff Bridges, you see Halle Berry, so it's kind of a dope cast. I'm excited for it. I just hope that they can make the Colin Firth thing work. So
it definitely kind of reeks of we didn't really have a plan when we did the first movie.
I don't know. This one came together super quick.
Yeah.
I want to say like they were shooting without a finished script. I could be wrong on that, but it came to, I mean, we're only 2 years removed from that movie and the sequel's coming out. So they started going on it pretty quick. All right. I'll move on to the next one. Apparently there's going to be a DC streaming service, and the big selling point for this streaming service is that Young Justice Season 3 will be one of its shows that you'll watch on there. And then also they're moving forward with a Titan show from Greg Berlanti, who does Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and Arrow and Flash. And Nightwing's going to be kind of the main character, the leading the group in that. So that show definitely piques my interest, but you know, how many streaming services can we subscribe to that the DC streaming service is going to be one that people are really amped up for?
Well, I mean, you started this segment by saying you had to cut a lot. I'm not sure why this made the cut.
This made the cut because I'm super pumped to see Nightwing.
Sure.
But why not just put it on the CW, man?
Everybody's doing this now, and it's super annoying. Like, obviously, all businesses are just copycat businesses. So when something comes out, everyone wants to kind of jump on that bandwagon, and Netflix and Hulu are always going to be the big boys, and they're going to try to, other franchises and other cable networks are going to kind of jump on that bandwagon, but it's never going to, you're never going to create another Netflix or Hulu. It's just,
no,
I don't know what you're going to like. I think the best that they can hope for is that they get picked up, because there are certain, like Hulu, you can buy packages like the Stars package or the Showtime. Like, I would think that the best that they could hope for is just to get picked up by one of these, the big guys that you can just, it's an extension of Hulu or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's what they're going for, but I'll be curious to see how that develops. This next one, whenever I read this for the first time, I was at work and I audibly, not screamed, but I got more excited than I typically get. And that is that Jeff Goldblum's going to be in Jurassic World 2.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, that was the only way that this sequel is going to like work as well as the first one, right? You have to start bringing back older characters that have been through this before and are staples in the franchise. And who better than Jeff Goldblum?
I just don't know how they're going to do it realistically, because he's already been through it twice. The shit already hit the fan in the first one. So how do you realistically convince that character to do it again?
I mean, obviously there aren't many story points out there right now, and you don't really know where the plot's going to head.
Sure.
But it seems like what was set up in the first one is it's kind of going away from the island again. So maybe he feels like his character needs to get intervene because it's, I don't know, getting too crazy. Who knows? I don't give a fuck, man. Jeff Goldblum's going to be in Jurassic Park again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Jurassic World was like this super tight story or anything. It's just, I'm curious because they do play it up in, what was it, The Lost World? Which one was he in?
He was in, the first one in The Lost World.
Yeah, so...
Wait, Jurassic Park 3 is just called Jurassic Park 3, right?
Yes, and The Lost World is the second one.
Yeah. Where the T-Rex gets loose in the city. Yeah.
Yes.
He's in that one.
They play it up so much in the beginning that he's never going to go back. And the only reason he goes back is, what's her name? Julianne Moore is his fiance or girlfriend or whatever at the time. And she's already there and he's just going to there to save her. I don't know if you can do that again. And The Lost World wasn't very good. So, I mean, the T-Rex in the city was pretty cool.
I haven't seen that movie in forever. And I've only seen Jurassic Park 3 once, but I'm down, man. I'm down for him coming back. So,
oh yeah, for sure, it'll be cool. I just don't know how story wise how they're gonna do it.
I'll mark out and suspend my belief to just see him back. So let's see. M. Night Shyamalan is moving forward with a new movie called Glass, which is going to be a sequel to Unbreakable, and will bring back Bruce Willis, and is also going to bring in James McAvoy with him playing his characters from Split. So I thought that was pretty inevitable, but it's kind of cool to know that it's actually in motion. But at a certain point, you can't get excited for these, right? Because he's made way more shitty movies than he's made good movies. So
yeah, and I've not seen Split, and I really have no desire to see it. So as much as I do enjoy Unbreakable, I want to say that I will eventually see Split just because I will probably end up seeing Glass.
Yeah.
And so it would be nice to kind of fill in that blank, even though I don't really know that you necessarily, from what I understand from Split, you don't necessarily need to see it.
Probably not, because it's like a credit scene that ties it to Unbreakable in any way anyways. So it's kind of stands on its own in that regard. I will say I talked about it when I saw it for what I was into that week, but it was a movie I enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would, and I thought James McAvoy was really great in it. So I would recommend watching it, maybe like when it hits Netflix or something
sure.
You can stream for free. But it's kind of cool that they're making a sequel to Unbreakable. And then this last one I saw that you shared on the Facebook, but it was just so far out there that I had to bring it up on the podcast as well. David Fincher is apparently in talks, or like almost close to closing a deal to direct World War Z 2.
Yes.
Which blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the first one. I mean, it's all right. I think I own it on Blu-ray just because it was super cheap or something like that. It's not a bad movie when you're kind of bored, maybe a Shocktober or whatever, just to get your Shocktober viewing in, just something you don't necessarily have to pay a ton of attention to. Super disappointing as far as the book is concerned, because the book by Max Brooks is fantastic. It basically just bought the rights so they could use the title, and the book is nothing like the movie at all. Yeah, so it was a little disappointing in that aspect, but for him to do a sequel for a movie that wasn't that great to begin with is just very kind of strange.
Like, he doesn't do sequels to his own movie. I mean, he directed Alien 3, but that was at the beginning of his career. So I know he's tight with Brad Pitt, but to come do a sequel to a not successful movie that many people aren't really clamoring for a sequel to is so strange to me. But he must have an idea or something, or be creatively invested.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really come up with a cure in the first one. That was kind of the point of it, was they kind of just made this camouflage. So, I mean, there's still some ways to go. Maybe you kind of circle back and try to do some of the stories from the book, because that's basically all that is. It's just stories, different people's stories. So you could kind of weave that more into the sequel, because there's, like I said, there's none of that in the first movie. So maybe he has an idea how to do that. There's a really cool battle that we as humans lose like really drastically in the book, and then how they kind of sweep the country and get rid of the zombies is actually a really cool thing that they describe in the book. So I'm curious to see. I doubt that they would do that in the second movie, just in the hopes that because that way you would end the franchise. But I'd be curious to see if he maybe weaves a little bit more of the book in, or any of the book, into the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, he has a thing for adapting books between
for sure.
Gone Girl and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So maybe.
Yep.
All right, man. That's all I have for nerd news.
All right. So our next segment is just kind of plainly called our main topic. It changes from episode to episode. We review a lot of TV and movies, and we're going to review a movie that I knew absolutely nothing about until about a few weeks ago when I saw a trailer for it. But it's about that time of the year. We're about to swing into summer movie season. So hopefully we won't have too many more of these episodes where we're just reviewing the one big movie, but there's not really a big movie this week. After all of that, we're going to be reviewing The Circle, which was directed by James Ponsoldt. I don't know.
Nailed it.
There's no way. There's no way that's right. He's actually, I didn't know the name, but he directed Spectacular Now and The End of the Tour, which are both movies that I really, really liked. It stars Emma Watson as May, who gets more than she bargained for when she takes a new job at a Facebook-esque company called The Circle. Like I said, I didn't really know anything about this movie going in. Just the trailer kind of made it look like kind of a generic sci-fi thriller, like not even sci-fi really. It's more like a cyber thriller type of movie.
Yeah.
What really kind of drew me to this movie even just like slightly is the fact that it does have a really good cast. It has Emma Watson, like I said, Tom Hanks, John Boyega, which I always say his name wrong. I don't know why. So I had a little bit of expectations just because of the great cast, and you don't get a great cast like this on accident. So I figured there had to have been something good to draw them into it. So how'd you feel about going into this movie?
So like you, I did not know much about it, except that I believe it's based on a book, right?
I'm not sure.
I believe it's based on a book. I could be wrong. And I thought that the trailer that I had seen looked interesting. I thought that it was kind of a cool, it looked like a cool thriller set in a world where Google and Facebook are these huge corporations that control a lot of our lives. So I thought that it was a neat idea with an amazing cast. So I was like, it can't be that bad, right?
Let's just jump right into it. So we kind of like break up our reviews if this is your first episode. We start off with just a section we just called broad strokes, which is just kind of a general overview. And for me, The Circle is technically a movie because there are actors playing characters standing in front of a camera, and it's like 2 hours long. So technically it's a movie. But when I got home, I don't want to say that I was angry because that would infer that I had an emotional response to it. But I was pretty irritated that I wasted 2 hours of my life on this, and I missed part of the NFL draft that night.
Yeah.
So I got home. My wife was obviously in tune that I was a little irritated. And so she asked me what happened, and I was starting to explain the movie to her. And I got a couple of minutes into it, and I stopped, and I literally said this to her. I was like, me explaining this movie is more entertaining than the actual movie. Like, as amateur film critics, I don't know if you get this as well. While I'm watching anything now, like I can't shut that part of my brain off. Like that wheel is constantly spinning. And I knew we were going to be reviewing this movie, so that was really the only reason we were even seeing it, was because we knew we were going to review it. So the first part of the movie, I was just trying to break it down like I do any movie that I know we're going to review. But then I kind of shut it off to a certain point of the movie, and I was just, that wheel was still spinning, but it was more like, is this the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life? Because some movies are bad, but they still have some entertainment value, because like technically the worst movie I think I've ever seen, like just across the board, is a movie, and I think I've brought this up before. It's this really low budget horror movie called Dark Harvest. But it's also like a fantastic movie because it's so bad that you can sit there and laugh at it. Like, it's based in West Virginia, and in the title, like at the beginning of the movie, they spell West Virginia wrong. It's West Virginia. And like halfway through the movie, the main actor gets a haircut. So when they're cutting between dialogue, he'll have one hairstyle and a different hairstyle the next time they cut in the exact same scene. So it's hilarious. It's so much fun to kind of just riff on this movie. It's really, really bad.
It sounds like we put more thought into the continuity of our short film than they put into this feature length movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, that was mostly you. You were a total psycho about it. But anyways, even then, that's entertaining. The worst movie that I have ever seen in my life is The Happening.
Okay.
I think it's ironic that a movie called The Happening, nothing fucking happens in it. And that's why I hate that movie so much, is because I'm not entertained by that. It was super boring. And this movie is that bad. Like, it's that type of bad where nothing happens. It's a bad movie. It's not well acted. The story is just garbage, but there's nothing that happens. That's what makes it so just excruciating to watch.
Yeah. So before I get into my broad strokes, I will say that I've seen a lot of movies with you over our friendship, and you're a very stoic moviegoer. You don't really elicit much of an emotional response or any kind of grunting or anything during the movie, unless it's a comedy, like you'll laugh. You were visibly upset during this movie. I thought you were going to walk out.
I seriously considered it at one point. If I had seen it by myself, I would have.
Like you said, a very tough watch. This movie was so boring. and it was close to 2 hours long. It had bad pace. The dialogue was just cringeworthy. The poor acting from very talented people that could do a better job, but they just didn't have the material, which just boggles my mind that they signed on to this movie at all. This movie had a hard time establishing any kind of identity throughout its 2-hour run. The characters were underutilized, and there were weird twists in the plot that didn't make any fucking sense. And they were supposed to elicit some kind of emotional response, but just nothing. It got nothing from me. It was a terrible movie, and it just blows my mind that Tom Hanks is in this movie.
Yeah, so just kind of diving into the story, you bringing up Tom Hanks kind of leads me into my next point. Even though I trashed it and I absolutely hated this movie, I think at its core, it had the ingredients of a good movie. Maybe not a good movie, like a serviceable movie, not one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I couldn't decide, and I think I actually nailed it down earlier today when I was thinking about it. When I first saw it, I couldn't decide if it was the screenwriting that was bad or if it was the editing that let this movie down the most. And I think because of the great cast, because Tom Hanks is in it, because Emma Watson's in it, they have some really good actors. The script had to be good.
Yeah,
there had to have been something to bring these people into this. Maybe it was the director. Maybe that's what it was. But it had to have been something, because not this many stars. Maybe you get Emma Watson, but you don't get Tom Hanks. You don't get these other people if there's not something to bring them there. So ultimately, given that, I would say that the editor just did a fucking hack job on this movie. It was really bad because, I mean, no relationship between the characters were ever developed. It almost felt like there's these video games that you'll play multiple, like you'll switch back and forth, like GTA 5.
Yeah.
Like you switch back and forth between, you're basically playing the same story, but you're playing multiple different characters. So you get their different perspectives. And it was almost like, this is Emma Watson's story, but we're going to get this other character's story later, but we never do.
Nope.
So it's just like for example, what's her name? She's
Karen Gillan.
Yes. Her character bothered the fuck out of me because she basically has this nervous breakdown in the middle of the movie, but we never see it. All of a sudden, she's just this emotional, like addict, druggy.
I know. It's like, where the fuck does that come from? It's like she stopped wearing makeup and it's like, something's wrong with her. Like she looks worse. So did I miss something?
Exactly. It just felt like we were watching. We were missing parts of the movie for sure. And I want to say there had to have been stuff that they had cut out because this movie was almost 2 hours long. There had to have been some kind of studio involvement. Obviously, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but there had to have been something because there's just no way that this cast signs on for this movie.
No, I think that's probably why we haven't seen Tom Hanks promoting it. I don't know that he put his Hanks seal of approval on this one. I would hope not.
Yeah. I mean, there's just, most characters were there for strictly plot devices.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, John Boyega.
He doesn't do anything.
No. He is literally, and I use the term third act as a technical term because there's really nothing to distinguish anything that happens in this movie, but he is just there for that last little bit, for Emma Watson to get her little revenge, which didn't even seem like it was much of like it was supposed to be this big reveal, but I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, I don't know how she goes from customer service to that, but this movie, on top of everything you said, I think that you nailed it, and that's something that didn't really click with me until just now, was that definitely very poor editing. But on top of all of that, it just tried to force everything down your throat so much. It left nothing to interpretation or imagination except the parts that were missing.
Yeah.
With like Karen Gillan's character. A lot of times we talk about telling a story, and we want directors to tell their story. Give me everything, because don't leave it up to interpretation, because we're paying you to tell me a story.
Yeah.
But everything about this movie was so incredibly obvious that it was boring to watch. It felt like a lot was being forced on me when the movie was coherent. At the same time, like you said, underdeveloped characters. There were so many underdeveloped plot points. Like I have this in my notes. Who was Ty? No idea. What happened with him and Tom Hanks to cause the rift between their characters? No idea. What was going on with Mercer and Watson's character? Like, what's their backstory?
Yes. So I'm glad that you brought that up as well, because that was kind of my next point is I think if they narrowed the focus in this movie was never going to break the mold. It was never going to be like the next great thriller or anything like that. But it wouldn't have been a piece of garbage that it was if maybe they just narrowed the focus. I think that if they had Emma Watson, was it Mercer? What was it? Mercer, his character, the parents, and the company. If that was, I mean, of course you're going to have the other characters that kind of feed the plot or whatever. But if you have those characters and that's your main group, that's your main focus, build that relationship between the two of them. It doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship, just that brother and sister relationship that they sort of had that you kind of see in this movie. The one big thing that happens in this movie does not matter because we haven't seen that character for like 30 minutes in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand Watson's character's motivation. Like it shifts from scene to scene.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense logically.
Yeah, you never know what side she's really on.
Yeah.
And like the stuff that happens with Mercer, I guess is supposed to set her over the edge, but I couldn't tell if she was already over the edge or where she was kind of playing her cards. It didn't make any sense. And I think that, like you said, it comes back to an editing issue. I think they must have cut out a bunch of this movie that kind of wrapped things together. Maybe it was like a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can't do that. I have no idea, but there was just so much conflict within her character, and
her character was really weird because like you would think like when she first starts at this new company, she's really kind of she doesn't want to kind of jump in full force. Like they want everybody to be gung ho about the company and the circle and everything. And it's almost like a cult, so to speak. Yeah. And she's very hesitant. And then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, she just completely jumps right in. And it doesn't make any sense. Like it seems like that would be the opposite. Like when you first get into this really cool company, you've worked at a temp agency, you wanted some direction. It seems like you would jump full force and then pieces like you would start unraveling certain things about the company. And then you would start, your eyes would be opening a little bit to the company and some of the weird stuff that the backdoor deals and stuff like that. And it seems like it was the opposite. Like she was very skeptical at the front end, and then she dived right in. Like that doesn't make any sense logically.
No, and there's just so many riffs with her character that I know we've probably talked about it at length, but it just didn't make sense, man. It's so convoluted.
Yeah, for sure. So performances. Emma Watson is the worst in this movie, and she is a very good actress. I'm not sure what happened here, but
I got to disagree with you on who the worst is, but she was not good.
Okay.
You know who I'm going to say.
No. I know who you're going to say, and I completely agree with you. When I say she's the worst, I think I might have phrased it wrong. She's not the worst in this movie. She's the worst I've seen her in a movie. Is probably a better way that I should have described that.
I would agree, especially coming off of a movie like Beauty and the Beast, where she's singing and doing all sorts of shit, and then this movie where she just doesn't. It looks like she's never acted a day before in her life.
And of course, I want to chalk that up very much like I chalked Scarlett Jo's performance in Ghost in the Shell to the material. Because I mean, we've seen Emma Watson, we've seen Scarlett Johansson do well in other movies. So I want to chalk it up to the material. But at some point, as a performer, even if the material's bad, you signed on for this movie, you need to kind of rise above it.
Yeah.
So I was not happy about that. John Boyega's character and he didn't have anything to do in the movie. Yeah. So I whatever. Like basically the only time he was ever asked to act is with her. And the scenes between those two are so uncomfortable. It was almost like they were aliens that someone described a human interaction to, and this was the first time they were like testing it out. It was so uncomfortable and so unnatural.
Yeah.
And the dialogue was just weird.
It didn't sound how people talk.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really, really bad. But the worst in this movie is what's his name? Coltrane.
L.R. Coltrane from Boyhood.
He is the worst.
Just because you make a movie that spans 15 years of your life and you started when you were a kid doesn't mean you deserve more work after it if you're a shitty fucking actor.
He was really, really bad in this movie. It was almost like he was just like when in the scenes where he's talking to Emma Watson, someone is just standing behind Emma Watson with the cue cards and he's just reading it off of. And like, it was really, really bad. He was just garbage. And his character, I'm not going to spoil anything. Not that either one of us is suggesting you see this movie, but actually I'm suggesting you run so far away from this movie. But if his character was better, not that it would have saved this movie, but the one big thing that happens in this movie happens to his character. And if I cared even slightly about it, maybe could have helped this movie a little bit. It was never going to save it.
No.
But I just didn't care about his relationship, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that he's not a good actor. I thought he was good in Boyhood at the beginning.
Yes.
As he grew up, it did start to kind of show that maybe he was a little not comfortable with this whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened there, because I thought earlier in the movie he was really good. And it doesn't surprise me that he hasn't gotten much work since then. And judging by this, he probably shouldn't get a whole lot more after this.
No, I hope he's done. You talk about actors needing to rise above the material, and I felt like Tom Hanks did what he could.
Tom Hanks was Tom Hanks in this movie.
I mean, I did actually, well, like is a strong word. The scenes where he was kind of doing like his Steve Jobs impression, where he's giving lectures. Like, he did okay there. Like,
sure.
Like, that's rising above the material. Like, it still didn't really necessarily sound how people talk to one another, but Tom Hanks'd it up, and he was fine. But, yeah, Eller Coltrane, definitely the worst. It's disappointing that this is Bill Paxton's last movie.
Yep.
For sure, because I didn't think, like, he played a guy with, what is it, multiple sclerosis? Is that what
Something
he had?
like
MS?
that, yeah. Yes. I thought he was actually
fine.
really good.
Yeah, he played it fine.
But he's just not in it very much.
No, I mean, he couldn't save it. I don't know what Karen Gillan's nationality is. I don't know if she is Scottish. I think she is. But I felt like she went in and out of the accent.
Yes, at the end, I was like, why is she laying the accent on so thick?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was just because... Like, I almost wanted to give this movie more credit than it deserved. Like, I thought maybe she was trying to, like, hide it when she was in the circle.
Yeah.
And then once she kind of broke free of it, she was just kind of more natural with her accent. But I think that's just giving the movie way, way too much credit.
They cut that scene out.
Yeah, for sure. But she talked about, like, almost overdosing on speed. That was never mentioned at any point in the movie.
You never get the idea that she's on any type of drug until she says she
or under any kind of pressure or anything.
Yes.
They never mention any of that until she's already there. It's like they went from 0 to 60 with her character. So again, it would lead me to believe that there's something that was left on the cutting room floor. Not that I would ever even consider buying the Blu-ray or anything like that for this movie, but I would definitely be curious to see some of the deleted scenes.
So this is not so much performance, maybe kind of, but it's kind of back to the story and back to the editing and something that just hit me. So there's a scene, like Emma Watson's character goes transparent, is what they call it, where she's wearing a camera at all times, and her parents also kind of do it, and she's like, she can see in their house, and she catches them having sex.
Yes.
And it comes across in the moment like it's supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
But then the next scene, it was supposed to be like this really big emotional thing that like turned her parents off to the circle.
But you never see any of that.
No, it's supposed to be super dramatic, but it was really funny in the moment. And I think that just really is a good example of the editing. Like, they didn't know how to frame the whole thing.
They acted like this was a big dramatic thing. Like they even mentioned it, I think, in passing as like the incident or something like that. That's what they called it. And I was like, that? Like, I had to think, what could they possibly be talking about? And the only thing I could think of was that.
Yeah.
Because they never really explained it, that there's now a rift between Emma Watson and her parents because of that. Like, I mean, it wasn't her fault.
Yeah. It was a weird moment in the movie that I wanted to bring up.
One of many weird moments in the movie. So normally we would talk about action, but I mean, it's almost non-existent in this movie. I mean, you can have a thriller without action. That's fine, but there's really no plot development in this movie either, like we said. So there's not a whole lot sense of talking about that. So let's just jump right to star rating.
I think I talked myself down through our review. I was going to give
You couldn't physically talk me down further from this movie.
I was going to give it a 1.5 because I have Fate of the Furious on my mind, but I'm going to give it a 1 because at least Fate of the Furious was coherent.
Yes. So I was pretty sure that Fate of the Furious, we do this every year with Matt from The Obsessive Viewer. We always pick, that's our nerd favorite when we do that top 10 list with him, is what our least favorite movie of the year was. And I was pretty sure that Fate of the Furious, well, at least I was hoping that Fate of the Furious was going to be my least favorite, because then I already got it out of the way. But this might be one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, if not the worst movie I've ever seen. So I'm giving it a half star.
Wow, that's definitely
I cannot tell you enough. Don't see this movie. This movie is a waste of fucking time.
I think what sets this apart from like that movie you were talking about, or a movie like Troll 2 that are so bad that they're funny, is that this movie tried so hard to be good.
Yes.
And fell so short from it.
And even those movies, like, even if they are trying to be good, who cares? At least you're getting the entertainment of laughing at it, even if it was trying to be good. Because you watch that documentary, the worst movie ever, or the best worst movie ever made, they were trying to make a good movie.
Yeah.
And they failed, but it's awesome because they made this gem of a horrible movie.
Yeah.
At least you can get some form of entertainment. That was torture. It was absolute torture watching this movie.
What kills me is that 22% of its reviews are good. I want to read the good reviews for this movie.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I can't imagine like how low your standards would have to be to give this a fresh rating, because sometimes that number can be a little bit deceiving, because if you read the reviews, they're not like, they're pretty lukewarm sometimes, but just because of the metrics that Rotten Tomatoes uses, that they still give it a fresh rating.
Yeah. But anyways, never watch this movie ever.
Yes, for sure. So, Nerd Favorite is our last segment every episode, and I thought it was appropriate to talk about a little bit about Mario Kart. Mario Kart came out on Friday, the 28th, so we're recording this the next day. Unfortunately, because Amazon's a bunch of son of a bitches, I have not gotten Mario Kart 8 Deluxe yet. Apparently, the UPS driver broke down on the way to my house or something. I don't know what happened. So I'm not getting it until Monday because UPS doesn't deliver on Saturdays. So I'm pretty pissed about it. So I haven't played Mario Kart 8 Deluxe yet on the Switch, but I'm definitely really looking forward to it. Just got a Nintendo Switch Pro controller to play Mario Kart because I wanted to see if it was any better than playing on the Joy-Cons. But anyways, all that aside, my nerd favorite this week is I wanted to talk to you real briefly, because it doesn't really matter in the whole scheme of things. But what's your favorite Mario Kart racer?
Okay.
In the game? Like I said, it doesn't really matter, because it really, the point of the game is the skill of the person playing it. It really, there's not any real disadvantage to each racer. It's really just kind of your favorite character in the games. For me, it was always Diddy Kong, because I am a big Donkey Kong Country fan, and I always really liked playing as Diddy. I would always be upset when Diddy would go down in those games, and so I generally, when I do play Mario Kart, like, I didn't play it on 64, unfortunately, because I didn't have a 64 until just now, until the last couple of months when I bought it from Secret Headquarters. My brother had it, but I didn't play it very much. I played most of my Mario Kart on the GameCube and on the Wii and Wii U. So I'm definitely looking forward to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But Diddy was always my favorite.
Yeah, this is, if I were to ever buy a Nintendo Switch, it would be for this game, because it's not individual to me, but just so much nostalgia from not only the Nintendo 64 version, but I remember playing the Super Nintendo version as well. And that was just one of those games like GoldenEye for 64 that you just played all the time with your friends. That it was like a rotation of that, GoldenEye, and Smash Brothers. So
yeah, for sure.
Definitely a lot of great memories. That being said, I don't think I have played a Mario Kart game since the 64 version, because I haven't owned a Nintendo system since the 64. But I always played as Yoshi. I've always just had I don't want to say I had a thing for Yoshi because that comes across weird. Although that tongue, though. Gross. But just him being like the dinosaur that Mario rides, it was, and him swallowing things and pooping them out. Like, I don't know why, but that entertained me when I played Super Nintendo.
I think we should tread cautiously when you're talking about his tongue and then talking about how he swallows things.
I did not expect this to go this way. I'm just kind of riffing here about Yoshi, and I don't know what I want to say. The first game that Yoshi appears in where you can ride him is one of the
I thought it was Super Mario Brothers. Like what was it?
It's the one where he has a cape.
Yes.
You can get the cape.
Yes.
That was a game that was always elusive to me because I had the cartridge for Super Nintendo that had like the first 4 Mario games on it, but I never had that one. And I would play it at my cousin's house or my friend's house, and I loved it. And I loved being able to ride Yoshi, and I thought it was so much fun. And then I eventually did get it and just played the shit out of that game. And I think because Yoshi was so elusive for so long, and then I finally got to play as him, he became one of my favorite characters. So that's who I always played as with Mario Kart, all sexual things aside.
All right, cool, man. So that is it for episode 138 of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast. As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. They're both at the Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google+. Vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. Comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where I'm actually going to be doing some Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Let's Plays along with my walkthrough of the new Little Nightmares Xbox One game, which I'm really, really looking forward to. Amazon kind of fucked me on that one too. I think it was supposed to come out on Friday as well, but I'm not going to get it until Tuesday. Anyways, those
Not sour about it.
Yeah, not at all. They're kind of screwing my Let's Play schedule, but I'm still going to get those out starting next week. I'm definitely looking forward to it. You can also check out our Twitch channel, which Tyler does a weekly stream Monday at 9 p.m. Central. Subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use, we're on it. You can also email us at thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt.
we are the Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
Later, guys.